Okay. I think we're streaming.
You have a link that I can go to?
Oh, I think we're picking it up. I don't see any kind of video feed yet, though. Oh, there it is. Okay, yes, we are live. You should be able to go to the channel and see us.
Aha.
So we should be live. You should be able to now see the logo. You should be able to see both of our pictures, our title card, and our images down at the bottom. There is a delay.
That's nice.
Is it looking good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's working. Let me now pull up our notes document, for which I've done nothing yet. So hello, if you're live. This is a little awkward. We're a little premature, but that's okay. I will be winging my review. And let me fill out my Spice Awards really quick, because I don't have time to write a review.
Get her done.
I don't have time to write a review.
You know what is in your heart.
Yeah, I mean, I can do a review without writing one down. Let's see, Waterworld. There you are. Now, who was the best actor? Man, the acting was not top tier in this movie. It's got to be Gregor, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, it was a mistake. Let's see. You know what? I think I know what I'm gonna do here.
Shall I paste this link into the Discord channel server?
Yeah, I'll do that. Or you can do that.
Okay.
That would work. Underrated performance. That one should be easy for me. Where are you? Where are you? There you are.
That's Jack Black, by the way.
Yeah, I had to find him. Best Hopper quote. Man, that's a tough one there. I think I put one in my notes that I really like. I just have to find it. I really did like the music.
Good.
Yeah, that's definitely my quote. Let me see if it's on IMDb. Here we go. Well, dang. I'm going to have to kind of paraphrase it then. Unless I can find it on another website.
Not on IMDb?
There's just one piece of it, and that's not what I'm looking for. Like, I want the whole thing, not just this one piece. I thought you were stupid, friend, but I underestimated you. You know, it doesn't always end well, or, you know, age well. That's what I'm trying to say. So, if you're watching this, hey, this is what it's. This is how it rolls whenever we're getting ready to get going.
That's how the magic's made.
I'm usually a little better prepared. However, in this case, I was busy all day and I didn't get a chance to work on this, so I'm scrambling right before the show to make sure I've got everything ready.
Well, how's it look? I like it better than your real eye.
How about a cigarette?
What do you say, Toby? The
Nothing.
truth. Looks like shit.
Nothing like
That's
a
why I
good
love
smoke when
children.
you miss your mom. How old was she? 9 or something? Never too young to start. Nothing like a good smoke when you miss your mom.
Don't just stand there and kill something.
Man, I can only find this partial quote. I can't find the whole thing. Well, I'm just going to have to do my best with it.
If you'll notice the arterial nature of the blood coming from the hole in my head, you can assume that we're all having a really lousy day.
Favorite scene. This one's going to take a little bit of thought. Let me think. What was my favorite scene? I think it was when Gandalf went into the Shire.
Different movie.
Oh,
Good
dang
try.
it. Dang.
Good try. How about the ending? Kidding. How about the opening credits? The ending credits.
Let me think. Where's my notes? Here's my notes. And this is crazy, but I'm having a really hard time figuring out what my favorite scene is.
Well, that's understandable.
Like, I don't even have one that, like, jumps out. Usually I have a couple. And this time I don't have anything.
There's the battle at the atoll.
No, definitely not.
I
mean, it was action. The underwater scene is in the running, but it was so cheesy. And there was a thing. I had a really big problem with the part of that.
When he pretends to be bait.
Maybe the part where the mariner was a butthole. Oh wait, that was the whole movie.
That's the entire movie.
Yeah.
Going to visit the city below. That's Jared Adams' favorite.
Oh, hey, J-Rod, are you watching? I've got to think. It's got to be a Hopper scene. Because he made me laugh pretty constantly.
When he acts like he's going to throw the cigarette down the oil thing.
That was pretty
someone
good.
Catches it last
that
moment.
was pretty good.
Pretty dumb.
I really liked the scene where he was interrogating Enola.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think I'm going to go with that one. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers, I know what your pick is.
That'll work. Do we need another category? We've only got 4.
I couldn't think of one.
What about like
worse?
Biggest does it make sense moment, or like biggest plot hole, or favorite plot hole?
I mean,
biggest plot hole.
I've got a 2-hour and 15-minute one.
I'm putting in biggest plot hole. So if we come up with something for that real quick.
I can do that. Biggest plot hole.
There's a bunch, so that shouldn't be too hard. Okay, I've got my Spice Awards done. I'm going to have to wing the review, but that's okay because, we're professionals here. Yeah, exactly, J-Rod. That's another good one. I'm going to put that as a honorable mention. Okay. All right. Checking Audacity again. Where is my Audacity? There you are. You are still recording, and you have sound waves. Great. We're still live, so that's another great. And John.
Yes.
We need to figure out an intro.
Right.
I've been thinking about this one, and I'm struggling a little bit. All right, I've got something. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be awful. But
well, we have high standards. So.
Yeah. I'm just going to do a voiceover kind of thing like they did in the beginning.
Okay.
In a world. We'll give it one of those.
I thought that was Optimus Prime, but it is not. He was not the narrator.
Okay, so let's sync up.
1, 2, 3.
Boo! All right, we're synced. My audio is recording. We are live on YouTube. Hello, people watching, which I think there's like one person watching. But hey, hello, one person. How are you? One other thing I should probably do. Can you? You can't. I'll have to do this. I need to announce on Twitter that we are currently live.
Yeah, I'm not on social media.
Which isn't really going to matter because nobody follows us anyway. Here we go.
Yeah.
This is the one.
You have to start somewhere.
Yeah. We are currently live streaming a new recording a new episode for Waterworld. Come join us as we search for dry land. Alright, and now I need the YouTube link for the stream.
Get the raw experience.
Raw. I don't know about that. Let me see if I can do this. Channel dashboard. Yeah, this is good. Content. We should have a live now. Yes. How do I get a link to this? Get shareable link. Done. Back to Twitter. Paste the link. And tweeted. Okay. Alright. I think that we are ready to go.
Okay. Before we go, look at this.
Okay, I'm ready. What is that? It's getting all blurred out.
Oh.
Is that 60s Batman DVD full set?
Yeah.
Ooh! I want that. I wound up ordering that Rocky set today.
Nice. Oh, the Rocky set or the Rambo set?
The Rocky set. Hold on just a second.
Oh. He's gone. Hey, Dwarven Dad.
I'm actually still here.
Oh, Matt's gone. He stormed off.
I'm still around.
He got mad.
I can't
He said,
take
"I'm
it
done."
anymore.
He's done with this podcast. So now I'm just sitting here, forlorn. Oh.
Alright, it doesn't matter.
Huh?
It doesn't matter. I was going to try to find my other set. I have the Rocky movies on DVD. I was looking for that. But I do not have them on Blu-ray. So, anyway.
It's a requirement.
I ordered that, and I ordered another thing. That's going to be a movie that I'm going to choose coming up pretty shortly.
You're not going to spoil it, are you?
Do you want me to spoil it? I don't know that it'll be my next pick, but I'll tell you it will be a pick coming up.
It's raw here, so I can edit all this out for the podcast.
I'm just going to throw it up. You ready for it?
Yeah.
The Towering Inferno.
Oh, that's a good one.
See, I've never seen it, and I really want to because I love disaster movies. And when I saw the cast, I was like, we've got to watch this movie. So
Yeah.
I ordered that.
Awesome. That's a great movie.
Yes, it is. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I am as ready as I'm going to be, which is unfortunately not very much unless we do this tomorrow. So let's roll with it.
I think we're professional enough that we can wing it and still
Oh.
sound amazing.
There's one thing. If there's one thing that we are, it is professionals.
Yep. Now, I learned this recently, and I probably should have known it already, but the word professional means you get paid to do something.
Yes.
And we get paid 1 penny every time someone listens to the episode.
Oh.
So, therefore,
that's like
ipso facto, we are professionals.
We're making like $0.25 an hour, man. That's actually pretty generous.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to contact Anchor and be like, you need to pay us 0.0001 cents.
Please. Please. Okay. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you surely ready?
Yeah, I'm surely.
All right. Let's do it.
Now you got me. Gotta get the giggles out. You're not helping.
Oh,
You're
I'm
not
sorry.
helping.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was trying to help you concentrate by giving you a serious look. Here we go. You ready? No? It's no good?
No.
That's
Of
my
course.
serious. That's my serious look.
Don't look at me.
All right. I'll just look at the camera. I'm looking at the camera.
All right. Gotta be a professional here.
See, now I'm looking at you.
Yeah. Welcome to the CinemaMen podcast. I'm your host, John Murphy, and I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Hurdle.
In a world where the polar ice caps have melted and the continents are covered with salty, briny water, 2 men set up in the safety of an atoll drifting somewhere on the globe are happy to present to you this evening, or this morning, or whenever you're listening to this podcast, a review of a lone warrior known only as the Mariner and his quest for dry land. Oh, also, he's a major asshole.
You should do movie work.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they'd be lining up for that horrible voice that I've got there.
Narrator, Matt Hurdle.
Yeah. John Murphy, prepared to continue the script.
Too bad they don't. Too bad they don't do that anymore. They
No,
kind of phased
I
out
don't.
that in the world.
I don't know that that's too bad. I think that's probably a good thing.
On tonight's episode, we are reviewing the 1995 sci-fi adventure film Waterworld, starring Kevin Costner and Jeannie Triplehorn, directed by Kevin Reynolds. If this is your first time joining us, what we typically do is start off with a review and discussion of the film. We follow that up with the Spice Awards, awards that we give out to recognize significant portions of the film. We wrap that up with Did You Know?, a section in which we go through some interesting facts about the movie we found on the internet. This is a spoiler podcast, so if you've never seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, pause this episode, go watch the movie, and then come back. Stay tuned until the end of the episode where we reveal what our next movie will be so you can follow along with us. If you want to get in touch with us or want to give us your take on a movie, feel free to email us at feedback@cinemamenpodcast.com or check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/cinemamenpod. If you would like to support us monetarily and have the means to do so, you can go to anchor.fm/cinemamenpodcast/support. We use the money to improve the quality of the podcast, so in advance, thank you very much. Hey, if you like video, we offer that too now. Go to YouTube and search for the CinemaMen Podcast, where every other Tuesday at approximately 8:30 p.m. Central, we go live and we record raw this podcast.
That's right. And these episodes that we're recording raw, they will not be available for, in some cases, over a month. So you can really get an early preview of the show if you do it that way. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until they release on their regular schedule.
I'm intrigued.
Well, you kind of have to be here, John. The CinemaMen content, the CinemaMen podcast, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it might.
It doesn't. No, it's terrible. It's just me telling corny jokes until everybody just deletes the podcast. I don't even do it. Like other people do it. They're like, "This is so bad that we're deleting your podcast."
Some people appreciate it. You can also go to that YouTube. The problem is, we have no actual YouTube link, so I can't tell you what the YouTube link is because it's some gobbledygook. So you have to go to YouTube, search for the CinemaMen Podcast, and subscribe if you'd like. Yeah, we'd appreciate it.
Just look for the logo, right? The same logo that shows up when you look for the podcast, the little CinemaMen Podcast with the little orange dots and the circle and everything. Just search CinemaMen Podcast, find our logo. That's us.
Yep. All right. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Reading the plot synopsis from imdb.com. In a future. Should I do the narrator voice?
Yes, please.
In a future where the polar ice caps have melted and Earth is almost entirely submerged, a mutated mariner fights starvation and outlaw smokers, and reluctantly helps a woman and a young girl try to find dry land.
That was a cross between like Snake Plissken and Tommy Lee Jones.
Every outhouse and whorehouse and hen house.
Oh, that was great.
All right, Matt, you made me watch this movie, so what did you think of it?
Okay, so I picked this movie, and the reason I picked it is because I haven't seen it in a really long time. And I remember as a young fellow, I was about 15 when this movie came out. I remember feeling like it was getting a lot of flack, and I couldn't figure out why. Like, I knew it was the most expensive movie ever made at that time, and it very much was, by a long margin. But when I went to see it as a teenager, I was like, this isn't too bad. I kind of liked this. Well, the hate of this movie kind of seems to proliferate even through the ages. And given that I haven't seen it in a very long time, I thought, you know what, that's what we do here. We revisit these old movies, and I thought it might be a great idea to go back to a movie that had such an opinionated viewer base of it and see what we thought about it now. And so that's why I picked it. As far as the review, this movie is not a bad film. It's really not. It's not a good film either. It is a solid, okay film. It's, the acting is kind of meh. The music is great. The cinematography's pretty good. The sets are interesting. The story is interesting. It's filled with holes and stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense, but you figure this is a family adventure film. Yeah, I think it was a PG-13 movie made in '95 for families. And, in that context, the movie was pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. Like I said, the acting wasn't great. I don't think any of the actors were really amazing in this. But like I said, the music was great. The cinematography was pretty good, and the world in particular was really good. The idea of these floating worlds and these factions and everything, it's a really interesting idea and a really interesting premise. But unfortunately, it's almost like the movie focuses on the world more than the story. Like there's constant shots of the machinery, the boats, the things that people are doing, going into the how stuff works, and not like directly, but like showing us. And they almost just went too hard, you know. It's like they spent all of their money on these cool sets, and they're like, you know what, we're showing these sets, and they did, and as a result, the story kind of suffered for it. I want to point out that there's a couple of versions of this movie. The original theatrical release had a runtime of around 1 hour and 40 minutes or something like that. There was later a TV release that came out that had a runtime of over 2 hours, like 2 hours and 10 minutes or something like that. But that version of the film was heavily edited, and so there were a lot of dialogue lines that were muted or cut out entirely, and extra scenes that were added in. We watched a third version of the film, which is that cut, the TV movie cut, but with the censorship taken out of it. And so it's essentially an original director's cut. And I want to say that because I've heard repeatedly that this cut and the TV cut are the superior versions of this film. We are not reviewing the original theatrical release of this movie. And given how I feel about the 2 hour and 10 minute one, which tends to be regarded as the superior version, I'm really glad for that. Because this wasn't a great movie. It was okay. I don't think this movie deserves all of the hate it got. I think what happened was it blew up into a giant media circus. You know, all the entertainment newspapers were covering this movie, and they were like, it's the biggest budget movie ever made, and you can't believe all the money they're spending, and you've got Kevin Costner in it, and he's hot off of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which was an amazing movie that came out not too far before this one. So he was very hot ticket. That's right. Same director, same leading man. And so Costner was hot when this came out. Super hot. One of the biggest men in Hollywood, you could say. Oh my. And I think what happened though is this media circus just turned into a hurricane, and everyone was like, I can't wait to go see Waterworld. It's the most expensive movie ever made. These sets are going to be crazy. I just can't wait to see it. And everybody went into the film with these super high expectations, and what they got was an okay movie. And as a result, I think that's why everybody started being like, that movie's terrible, boo. When if it hadn't had all that media attention, I don't think it would have gotten all the hate. You know, I do want to point out one more thing before I let John give his review, and that is that while this movie is considered to be kind of a bomb, it wasn't a bomb. This movie made its budget back and some. Just not as much as they'd hoped it would. Between the U.S. And the global markets, I think it barely broke even. But then they had marketing in terms of merchandising that they earned money off of. And then when they released it for home video, both of those times they had a huge spike in earnings. And so at the end of the day, this movie did make profit. It made money for the company. So it wasn't a big old bomb like a lot of people seem to think it was. But it was not very critically received. Wasn't well critically received. What am I trying to say there? It wasn't received well critically. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, that's essentially my review. I feel like this is a solidly okay movie that disappointed a lot of people and didn't deserve the hate. But it's really not a great movie either.
Yep, I pretty much agree. Um, I don't think this movie is bad at all. Um, and some of this is gonna sound like what Matt said, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Uh, when this first movie was first released, even before the internet was as ubiquitous as it is now, the overall consensus for Waterworld was this is a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mainly the reason for that was because it cost so freaking much money and took so long to make. I think I read the Roger Ebert review, and he said it took 2 years to make this movie.
Well, I know
Um,
the filming itself took over 100 days. They filmed for a long time.
yeah. So, with that said, I think this is actually a pretty good action adventure film, but a not so good sci-fi film. Um, the movie has some really cool moments, memorable moments. There's an attack on a water village. They call that an atoll. To an explosive set of scenes on an oil tanker. The action, it's fun, it's kinetic, it's energetic. Um, there are memorable characters. Dennis Hopper plays. If you'd given it to anybody else, this would have been such a two-dimensional villain.
I'm gonna debate you on that later. By the way,
Okay,
not that he didn't
he
do good, but
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
He turns it into a memorable character. I'll always remember Deacon, like the pirate patched southern good old boy uncle like character that has no regard for human life. He was just really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The movie has some really great world building and set design, and that is one of its biggest strengths is how much detail they put into all the sets and all the world building. Kevin Costner, he looks cool, but he's a pretty dry character. And I know he can play more charismatic characters because I've seen him. But he decided, I'm not going to have a sense of humor. I'm going to act angry all the time and indifferent most of the rest of the time.
He really does play a very unlikable character.
Yeah. So other than anger and indifference, he has a few moments of actual emotion of smiling and being happy, but it's very, very little. I would have liked to have seen a more lighthearted take, but that's not what he went with. And he was a pretty big part of the making of this movie, so I'm sure he did exactly what he wanted to do. Now, as a sci-fi movie, this movie fails pretty hard. It sets up this really interesting idea of this post-apocalyptic Mad Max-like world where there's no land, everything's water. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to be an action movie. Like, they don't do anything to really explore the message, like, of the repercussions of climate control or climate change, all the polar ice caps melting. Like, there's smattering of references about it, but it doesn't really go into really deep with all the explanation and why and how and what can we learn from this, and there's nothing about that. But they instead use it as like a action adventure playground, which is cool. I mean, I enjoy that part of it, but I really wanted to see more of a sci-fi movie, and I think that's part of the reason why it was so poorly reviewed as well. Overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I think it's worth a rewatch for anybody who watched it back when they thought it was crap. I think if you watch it with again, kind of give it a chance, I think it has more redeeming qualities than you'd think. So that is my hot take.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. I guess we can start with the world and the premise.
The premise?
What is the premise, Matt?
Do you wish to speak about the premise?
Yes, the premise. The premise.
So yeah, I have some opinions about the world and the premise. I think it's great. I think it's a really cool idea. I like the way that they've got these atolls or however you pronounce it set up that are kind of these bastions of humanity. Everybody floats on the ocean. It's cool to see some of the technology that they've pieced together using old pieces of technology that have been salvaged or recovered or what have you. It's a little unclear. A couple things are a little unclear, but I don't want to get too nitpicky with it. Like, water seems to be this big thing that's a problem to get, but they never really explain why. Like, you can take salt water and make it drinkable fairly easily. But,
what is one of the first things he does?
Yeah, he whizzes into a bottle and then purifies it and drinks his own whiz. That's like scene one.
If you can do that, I think you can
purify
salt water.
He's like this poor drifter who's just kind of well, I guess he's a rich drifter because he's got a jar of dirt. Captain Jack Sparrow would be jealous of that jar of dirt. But, yeah, it's kind of interesting how that's all set up. Like water, they call it hydro. And apparently it's hard to get or come by, and they don't really explain why. Because, really, with salt water, all you got to do is just kind of boil it and collect the moisture, and you've got all the water you want, right? So you'd think you'd just see a lot of that happening. Although, on that point, I guess maybe fuel for fires is rare. Because you don't have wood to burn, right? So there's something there maybe. But then... Yeah. On the same token, there seems to be gas everywhere because everybody's got gas-powered vehicles, and this is one of the big problems I had. And, well, I'll get to that in a second. John, what did you think of the world? Because I'm rambling.
Yeah. Well, so the premise, for those who haven't seen the movie, the premise, which isn't really explained a whole lot, it's explained more in the IMDb synopsis than it is in the movie, but basically something happened back in a long time ago, which caused the polar ice caps to melt, and that completely flooded the entire world, leaving no land. Mm-hmm. Everything's water. Water world. Get it?
Oh, clip.
And somehow people survived and were able to make these atolls, like you said, these floating villages, towns, cities, of which we only really see one. In this entire world, we see a single atoll.
Yeah, pretty much. Which there's a very good reason for that, though.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You can tell me what it is here in a minute.
Like that daggum atoll set, I think, was half their budget.
That's true.
They spent so much money on that one set.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just smashed my leg into my desk.
Good point. So you've got these travelers that go around and they trade and they try to find things and sell them in order to get hydro. Hydro is very valuable, like you said. Or get chits, whatever chits are.
I guess it's like their currency. Yeah.
Yeah. Dirt is also like a extreme rarity. No one has ever seen it, probably, or very little of it. So the world and the premise is very interesting. Like, you've got that initial premise, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. And as I said in my review, the problem is they're not interested in really exploring all of this. While they did spend the money for the set dressing, for sure, they really didn't go into. They didn't really go into, what should we take from this? What should we learn from this? How did it happen? Most sci-fi, the best sci-fi makes commentary on things. So the commentary here, you would assume, is
ecological,
climate control.
Yeah,
ecological. Yeah, environmental. So they open with that, but then they don't do anything with it.
Hold on just 1 second, Sean.
Sure. It is the Ford Pinto of movies.
Sorry about that, guys. My son wanted to say goodnight to me.
As he should have every right to. So yeah, I think they squandered that whole opening and idea. But what do you think? Really think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like the focus on in terms of the setting was on how humans have adapted to this new setting, and not necessarily on why it is the way it is. In fact, though, I mean, most people in the world, we find out, have no idea that the world flooded and that there's a whole civilization at the bottom of the ocean. They just don't know it, and we find that out through about 2/3 the way through the movie. There's no real focus on why it happened. Everybody's just kind of dealing with the fact that it did happen. And so, yeah, in terms of any kind of commentary that they're trying to do there, it gets pretty well lost. Although they do kind of throw a knowing nail into the boards of the... What am I even saying? A nail into the boards of the ecological theology of the movie. Yes.
There we go.
The one of the final shots of the film, you see the smokers, which is this gang of basically marauders or pirates that are looking for dry land. Their ship sinks, and you see the name of the ship, which is the Exxon Valdez or the Valdez. And if anyone listening is old enough to remember, that ship is notorious for having a giant oil spill back in the 90s. Maybe even the late 80s. I'm not sure exactly when that was, but
right.
So they're kind of like saying, look, but that's kind of a subtle wave more than anything.
Yeah.
They show, like, the smokers in particular, they're always smoking. More of this clever name stuff in action. They've got oil, which is never explained how they get the oil. They've got... And this is the thing I was hinting at earlier. They've got jet skis. They've got hundreds of jet skis, and they've got boats, and they've got cars, and they all run. Now, we find out pretty early in this movie that Kevin Costner's character, the Mariner, is a mutant. He's not actually human. He has gills behind his ears, and so he can breathe underwater. And his feet are webbed, so he can swim really quickly. And there's a rather silly scene where we get to see him do so. And it's obviously him getting pulled by a rope and wiggling and sped up footage. But, it's passable. In theory, in order for it to have been long enough for humans to begin to evolve into fish humans, right? We're talking thousands of years. We're not talking 100, 200 years. We're talking like thousands of years. And so it's kind of hard to believe that, 3,000 years, let's just throw that number out, into the future, jet skis are still running with no problem. Yeah. Airplanes are still flying. And all this machinery still works or even exists. Like, that's a pretty big stretch. There's no machineries anymore. You can't just take iron and make replacement parts when something wears out. So that was one part of this movie that kind of bugged me a little bit. It didn't make sense that they've got these machines that were working. I do want to say, though, I love the setting. I think it's great. They just need to explain why on earth all this stuff is still around and still working. Like, how do they have all this steel everywhere? You just don't know.
No, I 100% agree. Like, and on top of that, people know how to work on these things and use these things. So, there's a confusing, conflicting messages there. Like, these people know how to work on these things, which it would presume or assume that it's not quite that far past the event. but then you've got mutations, and they didn't really ever explain how the mutations happened. Like, was it evolution, or was it some sort of contact with
Right.
some kind of chemical or whatever? But we don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, there had to have been some explanation that was fairly common, because despite Costner's insistence that he was the only one of his kind, as soon as they saw the gills on that atoll, everyone was like, mutant! So, I mean, that's not the reaction that would happen if they had never seen one of those before. They'd be like, what the heck's wrong with your ears, man? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
They were instantly like, no, he's a mutant. He's got gills. He's one of them. So I think we have to assume that there's more like him out there.
Yeah. So the other really big question I had in this movie was, we have this child, Enola, and she has a tattoo on her back, some cryptic tattoo that supposedly shows the location to dry land, which is the mythical or supposed location of this last piece of land that's not underwater.
The girl, the character's name was Enola, and it was played very well by a young Tina Majorino, who is probably most famous nowadays for playing the kind of dorky girl in Napoleon Dynamite.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So she's just going about her life, but there are people that want her because they think that she can show them to dry land. And we find out that this is what was confusing to me, is at the end of the movie, they make it to dry land and they find out that she was from there.
Yes.
So, did her parents pull like a Superman Kal-El move and like ship her off across the water, and someone found her, or
so that we don't really get a lot of explanation, right? But there's hints throughout the movie. Enola is drawing pictures constantly. She loves to draw, and one of the things that she draws a lot is horses. And she'll also draw trees, and people look at them, and it's like us drawing dragons or something, some imaginary creature that doesn't exist. But the fact that she's drawing these things hints that she's seen them before, because she's got these pictures in her head of things that actually used to exist. And because of that, I think it's safe to assume that she was born there on dry land to I guess we can only assume that those were her parents, and that she lived there for a time. Now, when they finally get to dry land at the end of the film, there's nobody there, despite the fact that there's the remains of an old village there. So either they all died out from sickness or old age, or they got raided at some point. We don't know. News isn't really much of a thing in this world, because news can only go orally, and people don't meet that much on an ocean that's worldwide.
Orally.
Yes. What did I say?
Well, I just wanted to
okay.
point out that you
I was
said
like, did I say orly? Forly. Forlornly. Anyway.
All right. Go ahead.
So we kind of have to assume that she was born there. We don't really get the story, but she wound up on that atoll with Helen and Gregor, who were her adopted parents. Now, they're both looking for dry land too, so they weren't the people who found her, or at least got a hold of her. So yeah, we don't really know her story, but I think it's pretty well subtexted in that's exactly what happened. She was on that island, people were dying, and she somehow escaped and wound up in the company of Gregor and Helen.
Yeah. It was just, it was confusing because you don't know at all until probably the very end of the movie, and then you kind of surmise or assume that she was shipped off, or someone came and got her and left, and then that person died or something. Something happened to get her away
Right.
from that land.
And I will say, I would have liked to have gotten answers like you're saying, but juxtaposed with that's a hard word to say, juxtaposed, I liked the mystery. I thought it was really cool that this little girl had this map that nobody knew anything about other than that it pointed to dry land, and that she was drawing things that you would only see on land. I thought that was a really cool thing to throw in there, because you're like, how is she doing that? How does she draw a horse? I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I liked
a
that
lot.
part.
I just wanted a little more explanation about how she got there,
Yeah,
how she was found.
I'm the same. I would really like to know what happened to that village, and yeah, same. But they just don't tell us.
Yep. So this movie is very reminiscent of Mad Max,
Definitely.
the Mad Max series.
Mad Max on water.
Yeah, it pretty much is. It's interesting because while it's not really the same, it is. Like, it's almost... I guess Mad Max is almost like a genre, post-apocalyptic film, and they just happen to fit into this genre.
Yeah, I mean, when I consider a Mad Max film, I think of a post-apocalyptic film that takes place essentially in a wasteland. Those are the two requirements. And then there's usually going to be a faction of semi-feral humans involved.
Yep.
And this is exactly what that is. The only twist is that instead of a wasteland, it's a vast ocean, which really is kind of an ultimate wasteland, with the one exception that you can fish in it.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, the character that reminded me most of Mad Max was the gunner.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he was very he evoked Mad Max really hard. Really, all the smokers did. They were really what pulled me towards the Mad Max thinking.
Yeah, the
Just
thrown together
the way they
pieces of
look.
armor.
Yep, dirty, like specifically with the gunner, like covering the eyes. Like they did that a lot in Mad Max with the people that were using machine guns and stuff. I didn't see any spikes.
Yeah, not a lot of spikes.
No spikes.
But still, and I think it's pretty commonly known that whenever the script was originally written for this film, like, Mad Max was a direct inspiration for this movie. I've heard the quote several times, Mad Max on water, because I think that was the original intent for this.
Yeah, and I mean they do a good job of replicating that feeling and that sense for sure. Because I've seen Mad Max, I've seen all of them. They're not movies I've rewatched a whole bunch, but I immediately thought Mad Max when I was watching it.
Yeah, it definitely channels Mad Max. And also in Costner's character, the Mariner. Typically in Mad Max films, the main character is kind of a man of few words. He doesn't talk a whole lot. And that's the case here also. He opens up by the end of the film, but for at least half of the movie, he barely talks. He just kind of grunts and gives one-word answers to people.
Yeah, so why don't we talk about Mr. Costner?
Yeah.
I assume you have a love for Mr. Costner.
I do not. I really don't. I'm
Really?
not anti-Costner at all.
Okay.
But I don't love him.
awkward.
I don't love him either. I like Dances with Wolves, and this movie's okay, and I really like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. But aside from that, I'm not just like a raving Costner fan. I mean, he's okay, but I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan. I don't feel like his acting is super great. And if you read and you watch documentaries and articles that talk about him, he seems like he's kind of a dill hole in real life. Now, I don't want to say that he is, because I don't know the guy, but from all of the evidence that I've seen, he's kind of an asshole. which doesn't help with me liking him. Kind of, yeah. I mean, kind of like Chevy Chase, right? Chevy Chase he's
What
a
is
great
happening
actor
right now?
Chevy Chase is a great actor. He's done some great stuff, but he's kind of a jerk in real life, from what I've heard. Again,
okay.
I'm not saying that he is a jerk because I don't know the guy, but from the evidence, he is. Do you know what I mean?
I thought you were going to say you didn't like Chevy Chase. And
No.
I
I don't think I
turn
like
this
him personally.
podcast off.
I don't think I like him personally, but as an actor, I think he's great. You know, there's a number of people like that. Kevin Costner, Chevy Chase, Tom Cruise is another one. People who don't have the best reputations on set in the movie business, but who really can give good performances.
Sure.
So I'm guessing you are a Costner fanboy, John.
Oh, for sure. The very first movie I've ever watched was Dances with Wolves in a drive-in theater with my parents. I remember that vividly. But yeah, Bull Durham, Field of Dreams. Or we just started watching Yellowstone. He's excellent in that.
I've heard really good things of Yellowstone.
Yeah, I think he's a great actor. Tin Cup, he's awesome. And as far as his personal behavior, I don't know. Like, I know that he didn't grow up wealthy or anything. He appears to have worked hard for everything that he got. But I have heard stories about him being a D-bag on set and certain things. So, I don't know.
I'll say this too. There's been a lot of time between 1995 and today. So it's possible that he's not like that at all anymore. I honestly don't know. But I will say, like, his acting in this movie in particular, I was not impressed. I didn't think he was a great actor in this by a long shot. And, I mean, you couple that with some of the stories that you hear reading about the making of this movie, and I'm not a big fan, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did himself a disservice with this one. Like, he chose to play this character so dry, and I get where he's coming from. Like, this is a mutant, not very many probably in the world. He's antisocial. He's just about surviving and getting hydro and chits or whatever. So I get his performance. It makes sense within the world, but he's the leading actor, and he just didn't have a lot to work with here.
Right.
He had to be angry and indifferent, and that's the only real depth we see is when he starts to connect with Enola. And there's so little. There's so little of that in the movie.
I almost feel like he's almost the same character in everything he's in. Do you know? Like take his Robin Hood performance, take his Dances with Wolves performance, and take this performance, and put them side by side. And I mean, yes, there's differences in the characters because they're completely different characters in completely different worlds. But look at the acting. Like, they're very similar across the board. It feels like his depth is a serious straight man who just doesn't take a lot of BS, right? He like, I'd like to see him try out something with comedy, or, you know, something where he's not just dark and brooding, and see how he does with that. But like, I feel like that's all I ever see him as, is this kind of hard man.
Yeah, he
Don't take that the wrong way, by the way.
He primarily did a lot of dramatic roles, but Tin Cup was a funny movie, and he was more lighthearted in that one.
I need to revisit that movie. I don't remember much about it. I saw it once in the theater, and I haven't seen it since.
Dances with Wolves, I think he has a lot of depth. I mean, he has a whole arc where he's this Confederate soldier, or I don't remember, he's Confederate or Union. Anyway, he learns about the Native American culture, and he becomes more what's the word? empathetic to their side.
Yeah, he softens up, right?
Yeah, I think he shows a lot of depth in that movie. Robin Hood, I actually don't like that movie.
Gasp.
And he didn't even try to do an English accent in that movie, which is so weird.
I need to watch that one again too. I haven't seen that one in a very long time.
Mm-hmm. But I agree, for this movie, he did himself a disservice. I think he could have done better if he had decided to add a little more depth and character to the character.
Mm-hmm.
But again, at the same time, I understand what he was trying to do.
It was kind of like a Mad Max Errol Flynn, like this silent, brooding Errol Flynn, because he had a lot of really cool stunts in this film. He's flying around, sliding down sails, and doing all kinds of cool stunts. But then he gets up and he's just like, "Don't touch my stuff."
And he was such a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't get what that was all about. Like, he was literally helping people at the atoll. Like, he saved a guy's life. But then he gets the Helen and Enola on their ship, and he throws them off, and he's...
Yeah, the first thing he wants to do is kill Enola. He wants to just toss her off.
Yeah, it's really weird that how that goes about. And then, seemingly, a few hours pass, or maybe a few days, and they're all buddy-buddy now. And it just went too quickly. There was stuff going on that were against his character and didn't make sense. So.
Yeah, I agree. Really the only moment we got that was the kind of movement from, dispassionate, uncaring to I care about these people is the day he teaches Enola to swim. That's the first time we really see any emotion out of him at all, other than grumpy, self-serving jerk. Like, he threatens to kill both of the women several times. He sells the women to a crazy trader for sex.
That was bad.
Cringeworthy. At one point, he gets mad at Enola and just picks her up and throws her off the boat. Like, he beats Helen with a shovel. Like, he drops a sail on her head and then bashes her in the head with a shovel. He's really unlikable. And I feel like that was a mistake. I get what they're trying to do there. They're saying, look, this is a hard world and this is a hard man who's doing whatever he can to survive in it. I get that they're trying to do that. But when you make the main character so unlikable, you feel like there's no one to cheer for except for these two women. And, they don't have much going for them. They're helpless, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Someone who wasn't despicable, or was despicable but was entertaining, was Dennis Hopper.
Oh, 100%. He was the best character in this freaking movie, man.
Yeah, that was Deacon. It was the character he played, and he was the leader of the smokers. And like I said, and like you said in the review, you said you had something to say about that, but I said he took what could have been the most two-dimensional villain and turned him into someone interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna get a little bit into the did you know section, so we're gonna bleed a little bit here. But there were a couple of people who were offered that role, and I don't know. I think they could have done a really good job too. One of the more notable ones that I remember was Samuel Jackson. I think he could have really owned that role.
For sure.
Gary Oldman was another one who was offered that role. He could have tore it up. And when we get to Did You Know, I'll give a couple of others. I don't want to downplay Hopper's performance. Well, yes, I do. It wasn't great. The acting was bad. But he was far and away the most entertaining character in the movie. And that's partially because he was the only one with any emotion in the whole freaking film. Even Enola, the little girl, she watches her adopted mom get bashed with a shovel and, attempted rape several times, and she's just watching colors with no emotion. Like, this entire film is empty of emotion. And I think that's a lot of why it's just an okay movie. They had this huge budget. They built these amazing sets, and they had this great world. But then, the thing that really makes the story relatable, which is that human element, was kind of just left out to dry like some fish in the wind, Like, they just kind of forgot about it. They made all the characters emotionless and hard to connect with. And as a result, the movie feels like it's dragging if it's not an action sequence or something really interesting in terms of the world itself.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of a problem when the characters you want to see more on the screen are the main villain, the crazy scientist, and the guy checking the oil in the depths. Like,
that's true. Yeah, Gregor, her dad, has some emotion, but we only see him for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and not even talking about emotion, just interesting to watch. Like,
yeah,
kooky and crazy and funny. Like, they all have the funniest lines. They all are making the quips. They're all doing the interesting stuff, and you've got the Mariner over there that's just,
yep, exactly,
standing emotionless. And so, yeah, you can have that drama and that dryness, but you have to back that up with an interesting story, and that we don't have that either. So we've got the action,
yes,
and we've got these kooky characters, and
yes,
that's the movie relies on that pretty much.
And that's, again, I think that's the biggest problem with this film, is the fact that there's just absolutely no character for the audience to connect with and really cheer for. At the end of the movie, you're kind of cheering for the Mariner, but you know why? It's because Enola's hyping her up in that really cool speech that she's given to the long-haired guy. I don't remember his name. The guy with the luscious long hair that looked like he belongs in a D&D movie or something.
Oh, yeah. I forgot his name, too.
But
Nord,
yeah. He was another decent character.
Yeah.
He was kind of your classic roguish character. The betrayer, but he did okay, I thought.
Yeah, he was all right.
His end was a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah, not a fitting end for him. All right, why don't we talk about the ending, and then we can do our star ratings.
Okay.
Move on.
So yeah, we've already touched on the ending a little bit, but at the end of the film, the smokers wind up getting Enola. The Mariner goes to rescue her through a pretty ridiculous action sequence. That's good, but ridiculous.
Suicidal. Completely suicidal.
It's like Commando ridiculous. He rescues her, and they wind up finding dry land just through pure luck by drifting through the sea on an airship that Gregor built in the beginning of the film. They just happened to find it. Come to find out there was a village there, as we discussed. Enola was from there, and we find out that land was essentially Mount Everest. It was the top of Mount Everest that was still above water.
They don't ever say that in the movie, though, do they?
There is a cut of the film where you see them looking at the land, and you see a plaque that says Mount Everest. The version that we watched, I don't think that was in there. But it is Mount Everest. Like, there are cuts of the movie where you find that out. Find that out. Sorry, my voice faded.
Yeah, I thought the ending was okay. Like, it tickled enough of your imagination to want to know more about what was going on and why these two skeletons were there and how they died, and then it makes you think about Enola and how she was able to get away from the island. The way they figure it all out was a little rushed and silly, I thought. Like, apparently Gregor just needed to know that north was south and south was north. Once he knew that, he knew exactly which direction to go, and they made it.
See, I thought it was just coincidence. Like, he realized that it was coordinates on his back or on her back, but he couldn't read Chinese characters. So honestly, I thought they were just drifting and just happened to find it. I didn't realize they actually deciphered the map.
Well, he says before they leave, he says, "Oh, south is north and north is south. We should go that way." And then they go that way. And then days later,
like, how would he possibly know what the latitude? Like, he even says at one point he suspects that the symbols are latitude and longitude. I'm like, how do you even know what that is? But whatever.
And they end up on the island.
Mm-hmm.
And the mariner decides this place is weird. So
now that made sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense
because he's a fish person. So he would feel like he should be on the water. Plus, if dirt and artifacts from our society are the most valuable commodities in this world, he's a rich man. Because he can just swim down and get whatever he wants. He's got an endless supply of dirt. He just takes a jar down, fills it up, and dries it out. He's got a whole jar.
Yeah.
He could be the richest man on earth if he wanted to be.
Yeah, I kept thinking that when he was down there with Helen. It's like, why don't you just grab as much dirt as possible and just start selling it to these places?
Which they sort of address that in the movie, because when he does go to the atoll, they don't have anything. He buys everything they have, literally. So it's probably a supply-demand thing. Like, he can get all the dirt he wants, but just like if you're playing Skyrim, you could have all the coins in the world, but if you go to a store and they don't have anything to sell, it doesn't do you much good.
That's right. All right. Is there anything you want to talk about before we go to star ratings? Or
there's one more thing on Hopper's character I wanted to mention, and I guess this kind of also goes for Helen as well.
All right.
Did you notice that they're both like crack shot snipers? Like, Hopper never misses a shot. Everybody's firing guns like commando style and missing Rambo. And Hopper's like, if you want anything done, you got to do it yourself. And he grabs a gun and just shoots the mariner straight off. Just boom, shoots him.
From a mile away.
And he does it like 3 times. He's like, oh, they're dangling from a bungee rope. Or they're, just got into this helicopter. Let me shoot it just perfectly so that only Enola falls into the water. There's stuff like that. And then, Helen, she gets on that harpoon. Never shot a harpoon. Probably has never even seen one that works like that. And her very first shot, she hits a moving plane. I was like, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Which turned out to be a bad idea, but still, that's a decent shot.
Which there were so many instances like that in this movie. It is just loaded with them. Like when Costner, or the mariner, saves Enola from the water, he bungee jumps out of the helicopter with regular rope that happened to be the exact distance from the height to the water. And for some reason, he bounces back, even though it's regular rope. There's a bunch. And then when he gets up, 3 jet skis hit each other, and one of them's got Hopper. This is the end of Deacon's character. And it explodes like a giant bomb. Like, I have to say, I've never seen 3 jet skis hit each other before, but I don't think that's what would happen.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, like, when he gets to the boat, when he gets to the smoker's boat, the Exxon Valdez, there just happens to be hand and footholds exactly where they need to be so he can climb up the ship. Yep. When he gets on the ship, he knows exactly where the pipe that goes down to the oil is on the deck, and he walks right up to it. Like, how would he know that? There's a lot of stuff like that in the movie. In fact, we could talk about it for a long time, but I won't keep going. Just know that there's a lot of I don't know about that in this movie.
Yeah. My favorite one was when Deacon was smoking and he purposefully tries to throw his cigarette into the oiled repository, and one of his henchmen just happens to catch it. But if they hadn't caught it, he would have blown everybody sky high. And it's like, he's crazy, but that was a really stupid idea.
Yeah. And I mean, you could argue too that, oil itself, and we're getting too into the weeds here, but like you could take a patch of oil and probably throw a lit match into it and nothing's going to happen. It's just going to fizzle out. So it could be something like that. Now, the flare, maybe, because the flare is going to keep burning even if it falls into the oil. So maybe. Oh,
yeah.
That was another thing that bugged me. We're thousands of years into the future, right? Everything is rare and old and you can't find it. Except flares. There are flares everywhere. Like Costner...
30 flares.
Costner, when he takes Helen down underwater to see the city underneath them, which they just happen to be floating above at that point in time, he's like, flare, 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 flare. When Deacon is like, let's get going, boys, we got the girl, we're going to dry land, they just shoot like 100 flares up into the air. Costner has another flare that he's going to drop into the hold. I'm like, where are they getting all these flares from? There must be like a flare factory that survived the ocean apocalypse. I don't know.
Deacon has Jack Daniels when he's making his big speech.
Yeah, he has a bottle
of Jack Daniels.
Pours one out for Captain Joe.
That's a waste of a very valuable liquid that he's getting rid of there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yes, we could keep going, but let's move to star ratings.
All right, star ratings.
Yep. What do you think you're going to give this one?
This movie's okay, but it's not great. It's not terrible. It's not good. It's right in the middle. The world is cool, but that's really... The action's good. The costume's good. Like, it's got some good aspects, but it's not good enough for me to say, yeah, this movie's great. So for me, I'm coming in at a solid 5, right down the middle. I think it's a good right in the middle movie. It's okay, it's fun to watch, but it's, so is Commando. You know what I mean? And this was a big, like the biggest budget A-listed movie of all time in '95. So since it was that, but it came in at this, I've got to just stick with the middle of the road and go 5.
Yeah. I think, it's a decent movie if you're looking for an action adventure movie. If you're looking for a sci-fi movie, like even Planet of the Apes, which we reviewed last time, like that's a sci-fi movie. Like that's making commentary on what people did to the world, and this idea of switching roles between apes and humans, and it's just so much more better of a sci-fi movie than this. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 just because it was disappointing in that regard. But I do think the cinematography, the world building, the set design is good. The score is awesome. Some of the acting is entertaining.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
There's some good action scenes, so it's not a bad movie. It's just not what you would want necessarily from the movie.
Yes, exactly.
So, all right. Time for some Spice Awards.
Hooah!
4 categories: Best Actor, Most Underrated Performance, Best Hopper Quote, and Favorite Scene. Okay. Best Actor. Matt Hurdle.
Who can be neutral the best? For this one, I think I had to give it to Helen, who was played by Jeannie Triplehorn. She had kind of a tough role. She didn't have any real good action moments or anything like that, other than the escape from the atoll. She was constantly just being oppressed left and right, and she was doing her best to look after this girl and fight with the mariner, and I think she did as good as anyone else did in their role. I don't want to say she was exceptional, because I don't feel like she was, but she was at least believable. She was in a tough spot, and I feel like she did the best she could with that role. And if I have to give it to one person, it's definitely between her and Dennis Hopper. And I felt like Dennis Hopper was a little too over the top, even though that made him the most entertaining person in the movie. So I went with Jeannie as Helen.
Okay. Yep. Well, I did pick Dennis Hopper as Deacon. Because he was so entertaining, and I don't know, it's just he's like this southern, like, his name is Deacon, so I guess he was sort of trying to evoke this sort of pastor kind of vibe. He's like a leader slash minister almost to these smokers, and
yeah,
he's got the best.
Sorry, go ahead.
He's got the best like one-liners. Anytime he's on the screen, like, he is the interesting one. It was too easy to pick him. Like, I didn't even consider Kevin Costner.
I didn't either.
It was just not no contest, in my opinion.
There was just no range there, like we've said. It takes him out of the running. Yeah, I feel like he was, well, I already said it. He was basically my number 2 choice. If it wasn't for the fact that he overacted, in my opinion, it would have been no contest to him.
Yeah. J-Rod in the chat says Enola played a pretty accurate kid, so
absolutely she did.
Yeah, she was good. All right. Best actor, Dennis Hopper as Deacon was my pick. Matt's pick was Jeannie Triplehorn, who played Helen. Most underrated performance.
For me, this one was kind of a toss-up between 2 characters. That's not true. It was an easy pick. But I have another character that I want to mention here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you who I chose. I'm going to let you tell yours. And then I'm going to give you my number 2 pick, if that's okay. Because I don't want to overwrite you if my number 2 is your pick.
Okay, no problem.
So, for me, the clear winner for this one is Tina Majorino as Enola. I thought she did phenomenal given her age in this movie. She didn't have a lot of speaking roles, really, until the latter half of the movie. She doesn't talk much in the beginning, but in the last half, in particular with her kind of monologue where she's hyping up the Mariner and telling the Deacon what what the Mariner's going to do when he comes to get her and everything. That was exceptional, I thought. She had a really good scene also at the end when she's talking to the Mariner who's about to leave, and she's got a scene where she has to cry. Phenomenal. She did great. Given her age and the context of the material that she's having to act out, she did amazing. Honestly, I'm surprised that she didn't become a pretty big star. She's famous. Napoleon Dynamite was a really huge role for her, but I couldn't tell you offhand what else she's done. I could look it up, but I just don't know.
Yeah, those are the only 2 roles I know of hers.
But yeah, the talent she shows in this film makes me think that she should have had a bigger career than I think she's had. Again, I'm not super familiar with her, but that's why I think she probably hasn't had the career she deserved.
Yeah. Yeah, she was a pretty good child actor in this movie. Keeping with the fact that I enjoyed the more entertaining characters in this movie, I went with Michael Jeter, who played Old Gregor.
It's a good pick, too. Yeah.
He was this bumbling, weird, wild-eyed scientist I really enjoyed his performance.
I'm
It
not a
was really
brave man.
I'm sorry. I didn't do it. I didn't mean it. He invented the hot air balloon.
Basically,
And
yeah.
yeah, and knows how to figure out where dry land is once he figures out north is south and south is north. But I just he added a little life to the movie when he was on screen. So
Yeah, yeah, I
liked
agree.
him a
That's a really good choice. I feel like. I think he also overacted a little bit, but you're absolutely right in that he was super entertaining in his scenes. I loved the scene where he goes to talk to the Mariner for the first time. I thought that was great.
yep. We have a nomination from the chat. William Preston as the depth gauge, who is the guy checking the oil in the Exxon Valdez.
Very, very
I
limited
actually-
screen time, but he was a very entertaining character.
I almost picked him actually. It was between him and old Gregor, but I thought the depth gauge guy didn't have enough screen time.
Yeah, he doesn't even have a character name. But I agree. Like, when people watch this movie, they always remember that character. And he's got one of the best lines in the movie.
Yes.
When he's about to die in the explosion of the oil, he sees the flare drop and he just goes, "Oh, thank God." And then, if you haven't seen the film, this guy, he lives in a boat at the bottom of the Exxon Valdez, and his entire life is in the hold of this oil, and all he does is sit in this boat and check the oil level and let them know how much oil they've got. That's his life. That's all he does.
So you
And
can imagine.
he's just pale white because he never sees the sun. He lives in darkness. He's basically Gollum.
Yeah. So you can imagine when the ship is about to explode, he's like, "Oh, sweet relief."
Yeah, finally.
So he says, "Oh, thank God." It was great.
The character design on him is great too. He's just like this old man who's pasty white. He's got some big old huge goofy looking glasses on that are cracked, and he doesn't have much clothes on. He's just kind of in his boat.
Ugh.
So I want to go ahead and mention the other person.
Oh yeah.
Real quick before we move on, and that is Gerald Murphy, who played Nord. I
My
thought,
uncle.
yeah, right. I thought he did really well. He had some pretty good scenes, like when he's taunting the Mariner or whenever he's messing with Enola. He just was a striking character, I guess. He was probably the most menacing of the smokers from everyone that I saw, because he actually seemed pretty clever, and I felt like his performance was pretty good. So I want to give him a special mention here also.
Yeah. Once again, he kind of looks like this mad. He came right out of Mad Max or something. Long hair,
Or, 80s hair metal band, yeah.
broad-shouldered, like big dude. All right, most underrated performance. My pick was Michael Jeter as Old Gregor, and Matt's pick was how do you pronounce her name?
I'm saying Majorino, Tina Majorino, but I don't know
Tina
I don't know if that's correct.
Tina Majorino as Enola. Okay, best Hopper quote. Best Dennis Hopper quote.
So for me, this one was easy, but unfortunately, I had a really hard time finding a transcribed set of this entire quote. So I'm going to give you the context, and I'm going to give you the quote I can find, and then we're just going to have to go with that. But this is during the escape from the atoll. When they're getting away, Deacon sees that the boat is getting away, and he's like, "Did I see anybody can leave? Somebody get after them!" And so all the smokers start chasing the Mariner on his boat. And in response, he takes his grappling hook and he shoots it at this gun that's like a gunboat, it's got like this massive, it looks like an anti-aircraft gun on it, and this crazy guy on it just going crazy. And he shoots it and he starts pulling the boat. Now, why they're not smart enough to stop shooting, I can't tell you that, but it's irrelevant because they don't. And so
he was having too much fun.
they're pulling the boat, and he's just firing, kind of like the guy in Planet of the Apes with the water hose. It's a madhouse. But he winds up getting closer and closer to the boat that the Deacon's on. And Deacon notices this, and he's like, "Hey, who is that? Why are they still firing?" And tell them to stop firing. And he has these kids that are waving flags on his boat. And he's like, "Who is that? Who's that cousin?" Because they call everyone cousin, apparently. He's like, Is that Chuck? It's Chuck. He's like, "Hey, Chuck! They're like, "Chuck, stop firing!" And of course, he can't hear anything because he's got guns on both ears. And Hopper looks at one of the guys, and he's like, "Maybe he doesn't answer to Chuck. Call him Charles." And that's the only part I can find of that quote. Maybe he doesn't answer to Chuck. Call him Charles. But there's a little more to that whole set, and it really made me laugh. He's because they're just like, "What are you doing? Stop! Hey, Chuck! He's like, he's not answering to Chuck. Charles!" And then he blows up the boat, and that's how Deacon loses his eye. But that was my favorite quote, was that whole little interaction where he's like trying to get him to call the boat off so it doesn't blow him up. And then he's calling everyone cousin, which I thought was interesting. Who is that cousin over there? "Well, see you, cousins," and then he jumps off the boat.
Well, you'll be happy to know that was also my pick.
Hey, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It was very funny.
That was one part of the movie where I actually laughed.
Maybe he doesn't answer to Chuck. Call him Charles. Charles. He's
just and you just see that guy. If you're watching the video, it's actually in that little loop of images I've got down there. There's one of the machine gun guy going, It's funny.
Once he realizes what he's done, he takes off his glasses and stuff, and he's like, "Oh no."
Looks at the guy behind him, and they're both just kind of like, "Oh, we goofed."
Yep. Okay, best Hopper quote. Both of our picks were, "Maybe he doesn't answer to Chuck. Call him Charles."
Mm-hmm.
Favorite scene?
I had a really hard time with this one. Because I didn't really have a favorite scene, if I'm being honest with you. If I have to pick one, which in this case I do, I think the one I'm going to go with is whenever the Deacon has captured Enola and has her locked up, and he goes in to try to interrogate her. And he starts the interrogation off really with this awkward good cop act, where he's like, "Get out of here, you brute! Get on out of here!" And he's got like these markers, and he's like, "I hear you like to draw," and he's trying to be all sugarcoaty with it. Mm-hmm. And Enola's not buying it, and so he then turns pretty mean and starts talking about how they'll have to get her in a jar and all this stuff. But the part where he's trying to be good cop and he's interacting with Enola, you could tell he has no idea how to act with kids, but he's just kind of doing what he can. I liked that scene, and it's a weak choice, but that's because I don't have a favorite scene.
Yeah, you want to come over here and sit on my lap?
Okay. You're talking about the movie. I was like, no, not really. It's like, I'm good.
He says that to Noah. Yeah, I like that scene a lot. Pretty funny. And yeah, he was trying to play good cop, and it wasn't working, but he tried.
I think that's what I liked. Is he's this kind of hard bad guy, even though he's goofy. And he's trying real hard to be like, hey, and that juxtaposition I think got me. That's like the third time I've said juxtaposition in this podcast, by the way.
When it works, it works.
So
I went with the scene that probably cost the most money, and it was the action scene on the atoll between the smokers and the people living there. It was pretty good. I mean, it was weird that the smokers were riding Sea-Doos and water skis, and
It was so
like
chaotic, man. That was my issue with it. It was entertaining, but like there were a couple of times where I'm just like, what is even happening? like there's an airplane towing skiers. Like, have they just been skiing for miles and miles to get here? Like, what? And then you've got jet skis jumping over ramps to get over the walls. You've got jet skis going under the water to go under the walls. You've got people shooting up the place. It was chaos, you know? And it felt it felt choreographed. It felt like I was watching the stunt show at Universal. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like everything lined up with the timing, and I don't know. That scene just didn't do it for me, but it was exciting, and I can see why you picked it. I'm not trying to downplay your pick.
No.
Also,
I had the same. Okay.
Sorry, but while we're talking about the Universal stunt show that they made after this movie, I'm pretty sure that stunt show is what your background is. For those of you watching the video.
Yeah, it's back here. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Like, I picked it because it was interesting and exciting. But yeah, it felt like a choreographed thing. Once Kevin Costner gets out of his cage and they're trying to get his ship, which is one of the coolest things in the movie, by the way. We didn't even talk about his
ship is really cool.
His ship. But they're trying to get that out of the atoll, and it's like no one is attacking them. No one is firing on them. They're just free to move forward, and they had time to get stuck. And he got out of his ship and tried to wedge it out. Like, it just seemed it was really weird. But before that, the action was interesting and exciting, and that's mainly why I picked it.
I got you.
We've got a vote for the underwater scene, which we didn't really talk too much about. I liked it, other than the fact that it looked really outdated when they were showing Kevin Costner swimming through the water.
Mm-hmm.
That was clearly computer generated or green screened or something.
Yeah. I mean, I have some issues with that scene, but it wasn't a bad scene by any means. One of my main issues was that they just happened to be over a major city at that point in the movie. Another one was that he was throwing flares left and right, and I'm like, where is he getting these flares from? But I mean, it was a neat reveal. You know, if you're seeing this movie for the first time, it's kind of cool to see this city underwater. But then the whole time, I'm just thinking, well, if he can do this, he's the richest man on the planet. He can just go get all the dirt he wants. He even picks it up and like holds it in front of the little tube that Helen's in, or bubble, I guess is more accurate.
Yeah, bubble. Yeah, conceptually, it was really cool. And if it weren't for the CG effects, that's more of what I wanted to see. Like. Mm-hmm. Remains of an old civilization that had been drowned by water. Like, that was really cool. All right. My favorite scene was the fight scene at the atoll, and Matt's pick was the conversation between Deacon and Enola when she was captured. Final category, biggest plot hole.
There's so many. But for me, one stands out like a sore thumb. And this may not necessarily be a plot hole, as it is something that just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And that is, after Helen and Enola and the Mariner, they are trying to get to dry land. They know the smokers are after them, but they've evaded them. And they come to this trading post. They notice that at this trading post, there's a ambush waiting for them because he has a cool periscope that lets him look underwater, which you definitely need if you're a fish man. And so they see it and they start running away. They get away, but Costner, or the mariner, gets shot by Deacon because he's a sniper and never misses. So they get away, right? As soon as they get away, they start having a fight over dry land. The mariner reveals that he's been lying about dry land. He's never actually been there. He doesn't know how to get there. And Helen's like, well, then how do you have all this stuff? Like, how do you explain it? And he's like, you want to see dry land? I'll show you. And then he takes her down, which is the scene we just discussed, right? Mm-hmm. This is what bothers me the most about it. They literally just got away from the smokers. They know that the smokers are chasing them. And so what do? They drop their sails, they stop the boat, they leave Enola by herself, and they go swimming. It makes no sense. Why would you do that? Like, yeah. The whole ending of the movie wouldn't have happened if they had just used a little common sense. I mean, they come up out of the water, the smokers are there. Where's Enola? Oh, she's hiding, but she's about to be taken because you're idiots and you stopped when you're being chased by the bad guys. It just, that bothered me a whole lot.
Well, I agree. That was my pick as well.
Oh, was it really? I'm glad you noticed that also.
I noticed it immediately.
It was so blaring.
And I believe this points to one of the pieces of evidence that this movie was much longer and they had to cut it for time to try to recuperate all the money they spent on making the movie. But it seems like there should have been more in there where it alludes to the fact that they are days away from that previous scene.
Yeah. Because now that you mention that, and I'm thinking about it, he was bleeding and shot. And when he goes down, he's just kind of sore. He's not bleeding anymore. So I guess that does kind of insinuate that there was more time that passed than we saw as an audience. But
yeah, maybe so.
That's a stretch,
Yeah. But Deacon himself says, like, send out the trackers or whatever. And then we see the trackers. Like, there's no in-between scene where they're looking for them or anything. They're just there. And it's done.
Here's a question for you. Like, we see a shot with Enola on the boat while they're down looking at the city underwater. You see these, like, it's like two shark fins that go under the boat. Was that supposed to be the smokers, or was that supposed to be one of these mutant shark monsters?
I think that was the trackers. That was them.
So what the heck are the trackers? Are they like submarines?
I assume they were just smokers that had a specific set of skills, a la Taken.
So they're like drive mechanical sharks? Like, we don't know. Like, all we get are these two fins that go through the water.
Yeah. I thought maybe they were like snorkelers and they just had fins on
really
the back
fast snorkelers.
It's a plot hole. I don't know.
Yeah, and then of course the jet skis. I thought it was really cool that they had weighted jet skis under the water for an ambush, and they were using like hoses to breathe. That was cool. But correct me if I'm wrong, but if you take a jet ski that's 3,000 years old and put it underwater for an hour, it seems unlikely to me that as soon as it breaks the surface of the water, it's cranking up and going. Right?
I imagine it floods the engine.
Like, I would expect at least a little to get it going, but no, these things fired up. In fact, they probably fired up under the water.
Yeah, they repurposed them so that they work underwater.
So, I mean, I don't know what brand of jet skis those were, but those are the ones you want to buy, guys. That is, you don't even need a warranty on those. 3,000 years and they still run underwater.
Yep. Sea-Doo Smoker Edition. All right, my pick and Matt's pick and Chat's pick was the scene where they get ambushed and then immediately thereafter they stop and go underwater and leave Enola on the boat. All right. Hey, Matt.
Hey, John.
Did you know that Kevin Costner personally invested $22 million of his own money into this film?
That had to have been because of the massive sink that the money had become, right?
Don't know.
Well, here's an interesting fact for you. The atoll scene, or I guess set, rather, that set was massive, and it took a whole lot of money to build it. While they were shooting the movie, they were shooting it during like a hurricane season, and they had to stop several times because of weather. At one point, the hurricane actually sank that entire set. And so they had to, I'm not actually sure if they actually pulled it back up and floated it again, or if they had to rebuild it, salvage and rebuild. I'm not sure, but one of the massive delays and one of the massive money sinks was the fact that that set was built and literally was destroyed by a hurricane and had to be recreated, or at least repaired heavily.
Lending some weight to your comment about Kevin Costner. The film was primarily filmed in Hawaii, and Kevin Costner stayed in an oceanfront villa with a butler, chef, and private swimming pool, which cost about $4,500 a night.
That's
the
crazy.
Other crew members, huh?
That's crazy.
Yeah. The other crew members were forced to live in uninsulated condos that were subject to temperature swings of up to 122 degrees. Surprisingly, this contributed to on-set hostility and low morale.
Oh, yeah. I bet.
But he invested $22 million of his own money, so I don't know.
It seems like he really, really believed in this movie.
Yeah.
This was his, he fought for this film, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to give him credit for that. He was obviously passionate about this movie.
Yep.
So the director, Kevin Reynolds, we haven't talked about him much, but prior to making this movie, he went to talk to a very famous director who had experience with movies on water. And that would be Steven Spielberg, because of his notoriously hard to film and one of my personal favorite movies, Jaws, which was filmed on the water for the most part. He asked Spielberg, what his advice was for trying to make a movie on water, and he got one real solid tip from him. That tip was, don't do it. Do not shoot on open water. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Do it in a studio. Use green screens, do whatever you have to do, but do not shoot the film on the ocean. And they did anyway. And they should have listened to his advice, apparently, because what was supposed to be a 55-day shoot wound up running over 155 days.
Oh, yes. Renowned and legendary script doctor Joss Whedon flew out to do last-minute rewrites on the script's third act. He later described his experience as 7 weeks in hell, stating that he did little more than take notes from Kevin Costner, try to work them into the script because nobody listened to his ideas. In the end, he wrote a few puns and a few scenes that he can't even sit through because they came out so bad, according to him.
That sounds pretty rough. Enola, the character Enola, she's kind of unique in this movie because she can't swim, which is unheard of in a land that's nothing but water. That would be like a grown person that couldn't walk but then had capable legs or something,
Right. Exactly.
An interesting fact about her name is Enola, and if you take that name and spell it backwards, it spells alone.
Alone. Pretty cool. I thought it might have been some relation to the Enola Gay but it was not.
Yeah.
The map on Enola's back is written in Chinese characters, or Japanese kanji. I don't know how they get that. Those are two separate things. But anyway, the characters in the middle surrounding the area are actually coordinates for longitude and latitude, but they give almost the exact coordinates for Mount Everest, which is latitude 27 degrees 59 north, longitude 86 degrees 56 east.
Oh, well, there you go. We'll see more evidence that it was Mount Everest.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that Samuel Jackson was considered to play the role of Deacon. And I said earlier that I would mention a few more that were considered for this role. I'd also mentioned Gary Oldman. I think both of those could have been interesting. Two more that were considered for the role was James Cain and Gene Hackman.
Yeah, Gene Hackman. That would have been awesome.
Mm-hmm. He could have done it.
Yep. His character in Unforgiven was a pretty darn close representation. Like, I can see similarities there. Less silly, but Kevin Costner demanded the visual effects crew hide his receding hairline digitally, which was not a cheap feat in 1995.
I'm sure it wasn't.
So I read this earlier today. Excuse me. And I decided to go looking and see if Kevin Costner is known to be a vain person.
Mm-hmm.
And I found an article where someone interviewed him. And he might have been when he was younger, but nowadays he hasn't done any work done. He is the same, like he's okay with the fact that he's getting older, and he's like, I just have to accept it. That's how it's going to be. So I don't know. I didn't get an answer really, but this sure seems like he was vain back then, but maybe not so much anymore.
Which, I mean, that would make sense, right? If you're at the top of your game, your image is kind of everything at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's a fun little factoid for you. And I keep coming back to this, but the Atoll set, whenever it was originally constructed, there was a key element that was left out. And it's not sure if it was on purpose or if it was an oversight, but I think it's safe to assume it was an oversight. That key factor was bathrooms. There was no restroom anywhere on that set. And so the actors, when they were, they'd have to go out to the set by boat. They'd have to, act. And if any of them ever had to use the bathroom, they literally had to get on a boat and go to another area where they had, I think, a barge with some porta potties set up on it. And that was another one of the reasons why it went to 155 days of shooting. Because, I mean, I don't know how many people were on that set, but I think it's safe to assume you probably had 50 or 60, not counting crew. So that was probably a constant shuttle of people having to go, take a wee or a poop, moving back and forth between the set and the bathrooms.
Yeah. That's crazy. Jeannie Triplehorn and Tina Majorino nearly drowned on their first day of filming when the trimaran they were on sank, dragging them behind it.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
Uh-huh. It's been a while since we've had a Did You Know that had some kind of a dangerous outcome from production.
There was another accident in which Costner was in some pretty serious danger, where he was in the crow's nest of his boat, and I'm not sure if it was a storm or some winds, but something essentially caused that boat to go out of control, and it was just heading out into sea. He was in rough seas with big waves, and he was stuck up at the very top, holding onto the mast in the crow's nest. The crew had to essentially follow that boat and he just had to hold on until they could get a hold of that boat and slow him down and get control again and get him down. But I think he was up in that crow's nest for quite a while in some pretty scary seas. That could have gone really wrong if he had fallen out.
This movie was PG-13, but it had nudity in it.
It did?
Yes.
I didn't notice any.
Okay. Jeannie Triplehorn showed, well...
You see her from the back. That's correct. Yep. Yeah.
We assume that's her butt, but it is not. Even though she had done nude scenes before, she insisted on choosing her body double. She wanted to make sure that it looked similar to her own. So she had 3 finalists go into her trailer and drop their robes, and she described it as an odd experience that none of them could stop laughing. And in between the takes of the nude scenes, Triplehorn remained off camera to offer a robe or towel to the double.
It's an interesting way to be in the movie. I am a nude body double.
I was Jeannie Triplehorn's butt in Waterworld.
And look, that's me. That's my butt. Oh, this is kind of interesting. In the opening of the movie, the first thing we see is the Universal logo on the globe, the classic logo. But then as the narration starts, we zoom into that globe, and it kind of rotates, and you see the land start to disappear underwater, and the ice caps disappear. And we kind of zoom into that Universal globe to start the film. That's a pretty unique, and I thought it was a really neat touch. It's kind of a stretch for a did you know, but it's, you don't see that very often where you actually integrate Universal's logo directly into the film like this. It's a lot more common now, but in 95 it was not as much.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I appreciated it, and I thought it was a cool way to start the movie.
Tina Majorino, who again played Enola, she had a nickname on set, which was Jellyfish Candy. And they called her that because she wound up being stung by jellyfish over 3 times during the filming. That's rough for a little girl.
This script was co-written by David Twohy? 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 Who cited Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior as a major inspiration. Surprise.
I've mentioned a couple times that I really liked the music in this movie. I feel like it was really well done, and for the most part, I really liked it. However, there is one really odd choice of music in this movie, and that is they decided to include the Peter Gunn theme during one of the sequences. If you look at the soundtrack credits, there's only 2 that are listed aside from the score of the film. And that is the Music Box theme, which is the song that plays with the music box, and then the theme from Peter Gunn, which I'm not sure why they included that. It didn't even really fit with the movie, but for some reason, it's in this film.
I don't remember that.
I think it's when it's during the action sequence where he's on the smoker's boat. But I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's when it is. It's like when he's running around, trying to get to Enola, and right before he walks up on deck.
In an interview with David Letterman, shortly before the film was released, Kevin Costner said one of the worst aspects of the production was that his character had to look wet all the time during the shoot. To achieve this effect, he was doused with buckets of water between takes while wearing the mariner's costume. And Costner said, while he recognized the crew were just doing their jobs and they were friends of his, getting hit with water every few minutes really tried his patience with him.
Hmm. I had one. I'm trying to find it again because I lost it. Here we go. There is a scene that I'm not sure if it's deleted or just wasn't in the cut of the movie that we watched. But there is a scene that exists that does let the audience know that the two skeletons they see on dry land are definitely Enola's parents. So that question is answered. But I don't know what version you can see the scene in, or if the scene is deleted and you can't see it in any edition.
Gotcha. I guess this is true. The most remembered line from the film, "Dry land is not a myth, I have seen it," is never spoken in the film itself.
Interesting.
You got any more?
I think I'm on empty. I've only got 4.5 feet of oil left in the tank.
Time to blow it up. All right, that is going to be our episode for tonight. You can join us in 2 weeks when you can join us in 2 weeks when we will review the 1980 horror film The Shining, starring Jack Nicholson, directed by Stanley Kubrick. We'd love it if you subscribe to the CinemaMen podcast and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can head over to cinemamenpodcast.com to check out new and old episodes. We love to hear from listeners, so if you have a suggestion or just want to give us your take on a movie, feel free to email us at feedback@cinemamenpodcast.com or check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/cinemamenpod. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by searching for the CinemaMen podcast on YouTube. And we try to live stream every other Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And if you subscribe, you'll get a notification when that happens.
We will also these recordings we will start releasing as videos on the website, so you can expect that soon. Once our actual publication of the show lines up, like we're always a little bit behind. So if you're watching our live streams, you're seeing movies that won't actually premiere on our podcast for probably a month or so. But once we catch up, you'll start seeing these videos appearing. What we're probably going to do is release the videos a week or so after we release the podcast, so you can come see the raw takes after you hear the show itself.
Yep.
We're open to feedback, though, so let us know if you want to see something different.
Feedback. I should also mention that... I should also mention that The Shining is going to be number 3 in our A King's Journey series, and that Salem's Lot is about to be released this week, Friday, May 14th.
So just 3 days from this recording.
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Okay. I'm going to stop my audio recording. I'm going to keep us live because we have to decide if we want to do a Cinemini or if we want to put that off.
I'm good if you are. If we keep it to 20-30 minutes, then that's not too bad.
All right, let me do the regular housekeeping here.
Are you gonna host this, or?
I'm just gonna stay live, and we'll just do it right here.
Well, I mean, are you gonna lead this Cinemini, or am I gonna do it?
To be honest with you, I don't even have a structure in mind. I just wanted to, I guess, just talk. We'll just wing it.
Okay.
We'll get a structure over time. But first, let me export and upload the audio from this show. So for those of you watching,
Stick around.
We're about to start a new thing that is on the nights where we're doing these recordings. We hang out after we finish the podcast and we do a short episode, like 20, 30 minutes, where we just discuss a topic related to film in general.
Maybe not even film.
Yeah, just real loose, low structure, just kind of us talking about stuff. Instead of a particular movie, it can be, just topics. For example, the one we're thinking about talking about tonight is underrated animated Disney films. So, we'll talk about some movies that we feel like fit that category, and just kind of have a short talk and then end it and be done with it. Don't know if that's a great idea or not, but it would let us put something out weekly, which is why we kind of like the idea. So we're going to try it as an experiment. So if you want to hang out, get into that discussion, it's going to be a lot more freeform, which is hard to believe because we just kind of meander on this one anyway. But we're going to, as opposed to having some structure, we're going to be doing this with almost no structure, just a topic to talk about. So it'll be real low key, I think.
Yep. I'm going to set a 15-minute timer.
It's not a bad idea. So we're going to aim for 15 minutes?
Well, I'll set it for 15, and then we can start to wrap up at that point. So
Okay.
if we hit 20 or so, that's okay.
All right, I am uploading my audio file right now. Okay. Once I get that uploaded, I will. Oh. Look at changing. I don't have any kind of setting for the actual stream itself. I don't guess we want it to say Waterworld. Let me see. I can come in here and do this, which will get rid of our pictures moving over there. I don't have anything for this, so I guess what I'm going to do is just delete it. No, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Yes. I will make a new one of these. Sorry for y'all watching. This is probably looking a little funky, but just give me a second. Bear with me.
Black box.
As you can see, this is extremely freeform. We don't really have much of a plan at the moment. Take you up a pixel or two. There, that'll work. And then let's do this. And we'll just call this Does underrated have 2 R's in it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do something like that. Give her the old shrinkaroo.
Bring it up.
There we go. And
Bum, 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 bum.
let me me see. What color should that text be, do you think?
Black.
It's a wonderful idea. Maybe we worry about that another day. We could do something like that, maybe. Where did it go? It's vanished on me.
Z-index.
Yeah, it probably is the Z-index. Boop. Nope, it's not the Z-index.
Hmm.
Well, now what in tarnation? Oh, my text went away. Yes, you're there. Yes, you're there. Good, good, good. Z-index. It is massive. Why is it so massive?
And
What in the world? I'm working on it, guys. Something doesn't make sense. Oh.
I see it. I see a blur.
All right, you know what? This is taking too long. We're just not going to have text for this one, and we'll bring it back later if we need to. So go away, go away. There. We'll just do it like this.
Okay.
All right. Let me get Audacity going again for a new selection. Check, check, check. All right, I'm recording. Do you want to sync up?
Yep.
All right, count us down.
1, 2, 3.
Boop. All right, so we're good there. All right. You got your timer ready?
Yep.
Again, if anyone is watching this, this is our first attempt at this. We have little to no structure, so this could be a disaster. So thanks for hanging out with us and giving it a watch. So that said, are you ready, sir?
Yep.
Okay, give me a second. Sorry.
What was that?
That was, what was that? Wolf of Wall Street? No. McConaughey. All right, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Hello.
Let's see. We can. What?
I was about to start.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. What did you want to say?
No.
What did you want? It's okay.
No. If you're gonna lead it, go.
Okay. Well, you asked me to. I don't mind.
Well, you said you didn't have anything, so.
All right, you ready?
Go ahead. Yep.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to what is to be the first ever CinemaMen. This is an idea that John and I had to hopefully get us releasing content on more of a weekly schedule as opposed to every 2 weeks like we've been doing up until this point. The idea is that we release smaller little bite-sized podcasts in between our major movie coverage podcasts, the regular CinemaMen podcast, just to discuss some topics and just basically get out of the format of only talking about single movies at a time. So the purpose for these shows are going to be short discussions based on just things that we find interesting relating to film. And we might even have something in there not related to film occasionally, but it's going to be mostly film because we are a film podcast. We will keep these
That's
short. Right. They will be no longer than 30 minutes, probably even shorter than that. And they're going to be very free form. We're not going to be super structured with these. We just want to talk, bring some opinions to the table, and basically open up the floor to have a little bit more of a discussion over the film industry in general as opposed to individual movies. So that said, I am going to introduce first myself and my co-host. I am Matt Hurdle of the CinemaMen podcast, and with me is my co-host, also of the CinemaMen podcast, John Murphy.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
It's CinemaMen.
If you're listening to this, you're probably familiar with the CinemaMen podcast, which is our main show. But in case you're not, that's who we are. We are both just regular guys. We have no connection to the movie industry whatsoever, other than the fact that we really like movies and we like talking about them. So we put this show together to do exactly that. So thank you for listening. We have a number of ways you can listen or get in touch with us. The first being where you are now, however you're listening to this. That could be through your podcast listener of choice, Spotify, Apple Music, anything that our host, Anchor FM, whom we love, hosts out to. You could be watching us on YouTube. We've just recently started releasing these videos on YouTube. We should have the channel link down in the notes, but if you don't want to mess with that business or you're not on our webpage, where you can listen also, you can just go to YouTube, search CinemaMen Podcast, and find us. Look for the logo of CinemaMen Podcast. You'll see the little orange circle with the dots inside. That's us. So however you're listening to us, we're glad you're here. And I am now going to introduce our topic for the very first CinemaMen. John.
Drum roll.
Will you please give me the drum roll, John? What was that?
That was my drum roll.
All I heard was I think perhaps your audio filtering software does not like the drum roll. So we're going to skip the drum roll, and I'm just going to go straight to the topic at hand. And that is animated, and this is important, animated Disney films that we feel are underrated and deserve a bigger following than they have, or more praise than they've gotten in the past. Mm-hmm. So I've asked John to come up with a list of a couple of movies he feels fits this, and I have a few in mind too. And so with that, John, what's your first movie? What's a movie you feel is underrated that is a Disney animated film?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of Disney animated films, and I think we just are sticking to the Walt Disney Animation Studios line of films, right?
Yes.
No Pixar, no side studio or anything.
Correct.
Like that.
Yeah, it has to be a Disney film, and that does not include Pixar because I'm considering them a different company, even though that's debatable.
Yep. But even so, there's still dozens and dozens and dozens of those.
Very many.
But for me, I could not have a list of any kind of Disney list without mentioning Sword in the Stone.
Oh, yes.
That is probably my favorite Disney movie, animated Disney movie of all time. And primarily it's because I grew up watching it. I really enjoy the animation style. It's a lot like 101 Dalmatians. It's a fantasy story. I'm a big fantasy fan. Mm-hmm. It's got a lot of humor, a lot of heart, a lot of good lessons. So it's the total package.
Man, what a great choice! It's also one that you don't see pop up that often.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of people who really love it, but it's not one that you see all over the place. I guess a good example of that. Say you go to the Disney World parks today, Disneyland, Disney World, where you apparently are right now. As far as I know, there's only one Sword in the Stone reference in the park, and that is by the carousel. You've got the Excalibur sword that you can try to pull up. Not hugely represented in the parks like that. And I agree. I loved that movie growing up.
Yeah, imagine having a Mad Madam Mim, like a magic off at Disney World.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Where maybe it's a simulation ride or something, but it's Merlin and her like facing off using magic and stuff, and you're in the middle of it or something.
You could like get turned into a squirrel or a fish.
Yeah,
dude, that'd be so good. Yes. So that movie, Sword in the Stone, came out in 1963, which is hard to believe.
Yep.
That animation really holds up today.
Yeah, and you can sort of hear it in the audio. A lot of the speaking roles, you can kind of hear that static, or that you can tell that it's an older movie. But animation-wise, it still holds up pretty good.
It's an excellent choice for an underrated Disney film.
Yep.
So I've got one I want to drop on you.
All right.
And I feel like this is...
Before we go further,
yeah.
It should be noted that Matt is the Disney file. I am not. So probably he's going to mention something that I haven't even seen.
No, I doubt that. I'm not going with anything too obscure here. I'm going with kind of mainstream titles that I feel like deserved more than they got. To me, like I've got a couple that I'm going to bring up, but this one probably to me is the most underrated Disney film that exists. This is the top of my list. And that is a movie that came out in 2010 called Tangled, which it's a Rapunzel film, for those of you not familiar with it. This movie came out, and it just kind of showed up and went. It didn't get a whole lot of buzz, didn't get a whole lot of people going crazy over it. And then just a few years later, Frozen came out. And Frozen, as most of you are going to be aware, exploded. It was like one of their most popular movies ever, I think. And I never understood why that got so much praise when, in my opinion, Tangled is way better than Frozen. The stories,
like Tangled more than Frozen.
Yeah, it's better. The story's better. The characters are more likable. The comedy and the action is better. Honestly, every aspect of that movie to me is better than Frozen. I'm not saying I didn't like Frozen, because I really did. I just think Tangled is way better, and it blows my mind that it's not any more popular than it is.
Yeah. Well, that was like kind of that transition period, because you had a few years previous, you had Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, and Bolt.
Yeah.
And those didn't do so well.
Yeah.
And I actually like Bolt, and I may talk about that one. But then you had Princess and the Frog, and they tried to go back to their hand-drawn animation roots. Mm-hmm. It was a good movie, I thought.
Princess and the Frog is a great movie. I loved that one, too.
Then Tangled. And then they had a Winnie the Pooh movie, and then Wreck-It Ralph. And then Frozen. And so I think it just probably came out at the wrong time. Maybe that was part of it. Because Wreck-It Ralph was really successful for them, and Frozen was obviously hugely successful for them. So I don't know why it didn't really stick with people more than it did. But I agree, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
It must have been the timing. You must be right. Because really, like, if you take Frozen and Tangled and you put them next to each other, like, I don't know. It seems to me like there's a clear winner. But,
yeah,
it is what it is. Tangled is fairly well represented in the parks. At least it is in Disney World, in the Magic Kingdom. They don't have a ride, but some of the characters do come out. You see Flynn, Ryder, and Rapunzel come out occasionally. And they have her tower, which it's just a background piece, but it's there and you can see it. And they've got like the lanterns floating and everything. So it has a presence there. But man, it's always bugged me that it didn't get, like, I feel like it should have been the one to blow up.
Yeah, for sure.
So what else you got?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and talk about Bolt. Like, my daughter wore that movie out, and as a result, I had to watch it many, many, many times. And John Travolta plays the dog Bolt, and
I had no idea that was John Travolta.
Yep,
that's crazy.
And it's this story about this Hollywood dog, and he believes he has superpowers, but he doesn't know he's a Hollywood dog. And it's about him realizing that he is not a superhero dog. He's just a regular dog, and he has to find courage even through having no superpowers. And it's a pretty good story. Miley Cyrus plays the girl who's the best friend of the dog, and I don't know. I like the animation style. I like the humor, and it has a touching story.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and I feel like it was probably pretty successful, but you don't ever hear about people talk about Bolt, you know?
Yeah, it definitely kind of fell out.
Yeah, and if we're talking about presence at Disney World, I'm assuming it has none.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Other than probably little Easter eggs here and there or something like that. Yeah, that's an interesting one. You don't see people talk about, or I guess you don't hear people talk about Bolt very often.
Yep.
All right, so here's another one for you. This one, here's a little fact for you. This is probably my favorite Disney animated film.
Uh-oh.
Now, some of this is personal and nostalgia. So no, it's not. I don't want to say it's nostalgia. Some of it is just personal because I have fond memories attached to this movie. So not necessarily I'm saying this is super underrated, but I think it is very underrated. I'm babbling. This movie is one that I really, really like. And I feel like it's one that, aside from some character recognition, you just don't see ever. And that is 1970's The Aristocats. I could watch that movie over and over and over, and I love it. And to me, it's probably my favorite animated Disney film. But I'm not necessarily. I don't want to say it's the best. Right, I guess that's what I was trying to say earlier. To me, I love it personally, but I don't necessarily think it's a superior movie to some of the other ones that they've released.
Right. I know I've seen it, but if you reference the scene, I wouldn't have any recollection of it. Probably.
See, that's exactly what I mean. And you are in a pool that's filled with people, right? A lot of people have never seen this movie. It's just... Yeah. You know, you look at the classic old Disney films from, this era, you've got a lot of great old movies that people have everybody's seen them. They're just standard watching. For some reason, this movie's not in that category, even though it's the same quality animation and the same quality storytelling, memorable characters and music. It's interesting to me why this one has kind of fallen through the cracks. And, you see a lot... Recently, like, there's been kind of a resurgence, in particular with Marie, who is the little girl cat in this scene. She's a little white kitten that has like a pink bow, and she's kind of sassy. And so you see her a lot recently on a lot of merchandise and stuff. But the movie itself is not pushed, and that drives me crazy because I love it.
Huh. Yeah, I would love to hear some of the theories and interesting ideas around why it missed the boat, just like with Tangled. Like, was it a timing thing? because the Jungle Book came out before Aristocats, and then you had Bedknobs and Broomsticks after the Aristocats, which I at least know about Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Like, the name itself is familiar, but was it a timing thing or was it a content thing? You know, it would be interesting to know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to me though, and I love the way that they almost make music as a character in the show, right? Like it's got heavy jazz influence, and it's one of the first times you see Disney really, aside from like Fantasia, really injecting music as a theme. They've always had musical songs and singing numbers, but this was like the entire thing had like this jazz vibe to it. And I loved that. Plus, it's cats, and I love cats.
Masquerade. It has a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not bad.
Not great though.
Not great. Of course, Sword in the Stone has a 66%. So
see the crazy scores. But maybe it's nostalgia that's got us. I don't know.
I guess. I mean, I could say. The animation could be better.
Well, yeah, but it's that older style, right? This was 1970s, 1960s.
Yeah, I don't get it, but I like I said, the movie has a lot of good wisdom. It has a lot of interesting and funny moments. I mean, I don't see anything bad about it, but it may be our nostalgia glasses. Yeah. We've got them on.
It could be. What else have you got?
Let's see here. I'm going to stick with the newer movies, I guess. Mm-hmm. I like Chicken Little. Do you not?
we may have a divergence there. Chicken Little is not one of my favorite films, no.
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know what it is about it. Like, it's sort of mature. It's sort of a mature movie. Mm-hmm. But it's also that classic tale of Chicken Little. Like, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. They present it in an interesting way. Like, it's actually aliens, and he's this outcast kid. Like, he wants to connect with his dad. He wants to play baseball, but he can't because he's so little. And it has a lot of good moments in it, I think. And the characters are funny and interesting. Mm-hmm. Especially the fish. I forget his name, but the fish with the water helmet or aquarium, whatever. He doesn't ever talk, but he's all like, tough and take charge. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I liked it. What didn't you like about it?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember the movie very well. Not at all. And I guess that's what I don't like about it, is the fact that I just don't remember it. If it was something that I really enjoyed, I think it would have stood out and it would be in my brain a lot better than it is. But it's just kind of faded into obscurity for me.
I tell you what it is. Once again, my daughter watched it, and she was sucked in, and so I watched it, and I've watched it probably 3 times since she was born, which is a lot for me because I don't rewatch movies, but now I do because I have kids.
Yeah, I think every parent does.
Yeah, so it might be worth a rewatch, just to see. It does have a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes. So the consensus is that it's a pile of trash and garbage.
Well, John, you are the co-host of this podcast with me, and I respect your opinion, and so I pledge to you now I will rewatch it and let you know what I think.
Yeah. See if the little guy likes it too. Like, maybe you'd find more enjoyment out of it if he watches it with you.
Okay. So here, this is kind of a set of movies. I'll mention one in particular just to keep it fair. But this is The Rescuers. a set of films. The one I'm going to single out as the more underrated is The Rescuers Down Under, which came out in 1990. This was a sequel to The Rescuers. For those of you who don't know, the premise is there's this society of mice, and they're known as the Rescue Aid Society. And they perform good deeds. They help people who are in trouble. And they have a world delegation where they meet, and agents from all over the world are dispatched to help in these emergency situations. In the first one, you've got an orphan girl who's been adopted, but is really more kidnapped, and is being forced to climb into a really dangerous hole to get a diamond because the lady who has adopted her wants the money. Like, that's the only reason she adopted her, was to force her down there because they're too big to fit. And so they send these two mice down to help them and rescue them. And in the second one, The Rescuers Down Under, it's a similar story where a boy, this one's set in Australia, and a boy winds up getting kidnapped by a poacher because the poacher was trying to poach a golden eagle, which was an endangered species, and he was trying to help that eagle out, and he winds up getting captured. And so the same two mice from the first movie go and try to help him out. Love both of those movies. They can get a little emotional, and the music's a little dated, but they're older films. And just both of those movies from first watch I've loved, and I want to see more of them. And I feel like there's so much potential in that. Also, this is, in my opinion, one of the rare cases where the sequel is just as good as the first one. And in particular, in Disney, that's a rare thing.
That's true. A lot of times with Disney, you have the sequels that go direct to video, like Bambi 2 and those kinds of movies.
Yes.
So yeah, I own both of those. I haven't seen either one of them in a long, long time, so maybe I need to watch those.
They're great. I love them.
Yeah. Do you? So we're probably gonna have to close soon. Do you want to do like a most favorite Disney animated movie of all time? One pick.
That's a really big question. I want to throw one more out before we get to that. I'm happy to do that, but I want to throw out one more movie, especially while we're talking about sequels.
All right.
The Lion King 1.5 is a very good sequel movie. If you're not familiar with it, it's the exact story of the Lion King, but it's told completely from the perspective of Timon and Pumbaa. So all of the same scenes happen, but you see them only from their perspectives. And that movie was really fun. And it's rare that a movie like that is that entertaining. But of all of those kind of cheap straight to DVDs, which I think this one actually ran in theaters for a small amount of time, but of all of those movies, that one, it's definitely worth your time, and you should give it a watch.
Yeah. I think they recognized what they had with Timon and Pumbaa, and they decided, we can make a movie from their perspective.
It's super interesting to see all your favorite scenes from their point of view. It's really cool. All right, so we're talking favorite animated movie from Disney.
Yeah, to close out the CinemaMen, we're gonna try to list each of our most favorite Disney animated movie.
That's a really big question for me, John. I'm gonna give you two.
You can't do that.
I'm going to, because I can't choose between these two because I love them both very, very much.
Okay.
The tie for first place for me, and I know it's kind of a cop-out, but you're asking a really big Disney fan a really big question. It's got to be a tie between the Aristocats, which I've already said I just love that movie, and Robin Hood.
Okay. You can't pick one over the other. It's not possible.
If I had to, I would probably pick the Aristocats, but it's a really close call because I absolutely adore that Robin Hood movie too.
Interesting. Well, I thought I had it. Yeah, I mean, it's Sword in the Stone.
That's a really good pick, and that
Yeah.
one's very highly rated with me also.
It just so happens that it's also an underrated Disney film, but it's the one I've watched the most. It grabs me. It's got good animation. It's interesting. It's got all the fantasy stuff, which I enjoy. It's the story of, well, it's the not real story of the not real story of Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
And how he grows up to eventually become the person who pulls the Excalibur out of the stone, and it's just really cool. And Archimedes is one of Disney usually has that animal anthropomorphized animal sidekick character, and Archimedes is this wisecracking dry owl.
Mm-hmm. Archimedes is such a great character.
Thinks he knows it all, and then you got
In fact,
Merlin.
we used that in the CinemaMen podcast.
We did.
For the first couple of episodes.
Who? What?
Yeah, good old Archimedes. So just a couple more I want to mention really close while we're closing up. The Great Mouse Detective, a classic one that I feel like is underrated. Also, Oliver and Company. I loved that movie as a kid, and I feel like it was underrated. And I have to say, you didn't say a movie that I thought you were going to say.
Which was?
The Black Cauldron.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one's good.
I really expected you to list that one, and was surprised that you didn't.
That one is up there. That one, and this isn't a Disney movie, but The Secret of NIMH are...
Secret of
those are
NIMH.
kind of neck and neck for me. Like,
I can almost guarantee you we're going to do The Secret of NIMH for one of my picks in the future.
that would be...
That movie's very close to my heart. I love that movie.
Yeah. Probably what will happen with these CinemaMinis, too, is we'll get some ideas for actual episodes.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But anyway.
All right, so I guess that's it, unless there's anything extra you want to add.
No, just that Matt's right. This is our first time doing one of these, and we will, just like we did with the other episodes, we will iterate on these and figure out what works best. Maybe we had too big of an idea of doing like a list. Maybe we should have just picked one movie. Who knows?
Oh, we're getting away from that. That's the whole point of these.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, yeah, nothing else to say. So
All right. Well, I guess that's it then for our very first CinemaMini. I want to thank everybody for listening. Expect more of these on off weeks. So you'll get a week of the CinemaMen podcast, which is our full-length movie review podcast, followed by a CinemaMini released in our off weeks. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for sticking around. We are, to be blunt, kind of desperate for any kind of feedback or listener interaction with us. So please, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment below. If you like what you're seeing, hit that subscribe button for us, please. Give us a like. If you're listening on a podcast player like Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever you're listening to, please give us a like there. If you would be so kind, we'd really appreciate it if you would just leave us a little review. Because word on the street is that the algorithm, the mystical algorithm, likes when you have reviews for your podcast. So, we're just two regular dudes who do this for fun. We don't have a ton of money to throw at this. So, any help you can give us in terms of that is super appreciated. Honestly, that's more appreciated right now than any kind of contribution you could make financially. We're just looking for exposure. So tell your friends about us. Give us a listen. And thank you so much just for listening to this one.
Yep. For sure.
All right. So thanks very much, everybody. We will see you next week with a regular released CinemaMen podcast, and then we'll be back with another CinemaMini after that. So everyone, have a great day, night, or morning, depending on when you're listening. Thanks. All right. What do you think?
We did it.
Is that okay, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's good. We will. Some topics will be. Well, I feel like that one, like we could have gone another 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, it's easy to do.
We've got to rein it in and make sure we stay within that.
Which we went 32 minutes, and we went right at 30 minutes because we had some stuff at the beginning. I stopped the audio at 32 minutes, so. Let me see. I guess I'll just put this into. I guess we need a folder for CinemaMinis, don't we?
Oh yeah.
Oh, and I guess I can go ahead and end the stream. If you're still on stream, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back in 2 weeks to do another one of these. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great night, and we'll see you again soon.